My name for this story is Ripley. I grew up in a small place near Detroit, in apartments where walls were thin and voices carried. My mother worked long shifts. My father was mostly absent. We moved often, never long enough to belong. From early on, I learned to guess moods from footsteps and to expect instability. What I wanted most was steady love. I was the child who made teachers laugh to keep the room safe. I told adults I'm fine because I thought it was my job to be easy. Loneliness became a quiet second skin. When I was old enough to ride the bus alone, I started slipping into the city. Long Beach was louder, brighter, full of strangers who felt like they belonged. Music leaked from cars, friends argued over playlists, corner shops greeted me like family. It felt like a place where I might invent a different life. Attention followed me, the complicated kind. Compliments sounded like kindness until they asked for something back. I learned to walk fast, keys in hand. I learned to smile and keep moving. I met a girl named V who let me crash on her floor when I missed buses. She taught me small rules for survival. Text when you arrive, don't flash your phone, say no like a full sentence. We dreamed about futures written on napkins, her making music, me running a shop with warm light and a bell that rang when the door opened. One night I met Jay at a diner. He was polite, soft-spoken, and asked the questions no one else asked. Did I have a safe place to sleep? Did I want help with school? He bought me fries, offered a bed in an apartment where other girls were resetting. No pressure, he said. The apartment seemed safe. Towels folded, music playing, girls my age laughing over mascara. Jay cooked breakfast once, just eggs, but it felt like care. I cleaned up, eager to earn my place. Days blurred. Jay gave rides, bought small gifts, spoke like a mentor. You're smart, he told me. But he also kept a quiet list of what I owed. Gratitude slid into obligation. I promised myself I'd pay him back when I had a job. The first time I mentioned leaving, his smile turned sharp. He reminded me of the food, the rides, the clothes. Leaving halfway makes people feel used, he said. His words were velvet, but the meaning was steel. My choices began to shrink. This is where people expect the worst details. I won't give them. Not to protect him, but to protect the girl I was. Here is what matters. Consent requires freedom, and freedom was gone. I began keeping tiny promises to myself. Drink water, hide cash, notice which doors didn't latch. I repeated in the mirror. This isn't my fault. Shame is a leash. I practiced letting go. There were small kindnesses. A bus driver who waited an extra second. A mother who moved her bag so I could sit. V whispering, family shouldn't feel like this. Each moment was a match in the dark, proof that another life was possible. I wasn't naive in a way that made me disposable. I was young in a way that made me human. Predators depend on that confusion, turning kindness into currency. That isn't love. If there's a hero in this chapter, it isn't a stranger breaking down a door. It's the quiet return of my own voice. I wrote escape plans on scraps of paper and hid them in my shoe. Not yet, but soon. Not loud, but certain. The ocean was still there, breathing slow and honest. Standing with salt on my lips, I promised myself one thing. I would keep a part of me unbargained. That part would wait until I carried it to safety. That part learned a word, choice, and began to believe it could be mine. At first I believed Jay's apartment was a place to rest, but weeks turned into patterns. Each ride, each meal, each gift carried invisible strings. He never raised his voice. He didn't have to. Gratitude worked better than chains. I thought if I kept smiling, folding blankets, being good, maybe I could balance the ledger. The other girls coached me quietly. Don't cross him, one whispered. Just keep the peace. They acted like sisters, brushing my hair, trading stories. But beneath the laughter there was a steady hum of fear. We all felt it, like a smoke alarm with no batteries, silent but smelling of fire. Jay's kindness carried rules. Go where he said. Stay where he placed us. Smile at the right moments. Sometimes he vanished for days, and the air grew lighter. When he returned, it grew heavy again. He asked questions in ways that weren't really questions. You know you owe me, right? You know I've invested in you. I nodded, because nodding kept the peace. Soon the rides changed. No more buses or diners. Instead, cars pulled up to motels, places with buzzing neon, threadbare carpets, lobbies that smelled of bleach. He grouped us 2 or 3 to a room. We stayed there for hours, sometimes days, waiting. The girls whispered survival tips the way children trade candy. Don't argue. Don't cry where they can see. Find something to stare at until it's over. The first time, I told myself it wasn't happening. I left my body like it was a coat I didn't want to wear. I counted stains on the ceiling until the numbers blurred. Afterward, I folded the blanket again, pretending control. But the debt only grew. Jay's smile could shift in an instant. If we broke an unspoken rule, talking to the wrong person, stepping outside alone, his expression hardened. One girl came back from the vending machine, and he struck her without warning. She crumpled, silent. We all learned from her silence. Sometimes his son was there, brought by the child's mother, Treasure. The boy toddled through the same rooms where we hid our fear. Treasure pretended everything was normal, playing cards with us, laughing too loudly. Watching her broke something in me. If she could normalize this, maybe I would too. That thought terrified me more than Jay himself. I began to mark time differently. Not by days, but by escapes in my head, imagining the coast, a bookstore job, a place where my name wasn't currency. In the mirror, bruises faded, but my eyes didn't. I started to recognize the distance in them. One night, the city outside roared with celebration. The Red Wings had won. Fireworks cracked in the sky, horns blared, strangers shouted with joy. Inside, the room was dim, 2 men waiting, another girl younger than me on the bed. Their wedding rings glinted in the weak light. I stared at the wallpaper and thought, I am disappearing. The cheers outside mocked the silence in my throat. Shame became my heaviest burden. I dodged the truth even with myself. I told my reflection, it didn't happen. I convinced myself that survival meant erasing evidence. But the body remembers what the mind denies. My hands shook when I reached for doorknobs. My chest tightened when footsteps slowed behind me. I wanted to run. But where? Jay knew my mother's address. He said once, casually, imagine how she'd react if I showed her what you owe. His threats didn't need detail. The possibility was enough. I stayed, still pieces of me resisted. I kept small caches of change hidden in my shoes. I memorized the sound of police radios, even though I didn't trust them. Once in a lobby, a clerk slid me a coffee with a look that asked, "Are you okay?" I nodded, but the memory burned bright, proof that the world still contained people who cared. At night, the girls whispered dreams. One wanted to study nursing. Another just wanted to dance in a real club where no one touched her without asking. I whispered mine, a room with books and no locks. We laughed, but softly, as if afraid Jay could hear through walls. Every morning I woke with 2 truths fighting inside me. Escape was impossible, and escape was inevitable. I didn't know which was right, but I began to collect hope the way others collect debts, quietly, stubbornly, like seeds slipped into pockets. I used to believe there was no bottom, that the worst had already happened, but the bottom kept dropping. Each time I thought I had learned his limits, Jay showed me he had none. The night I tried to breathe free air, I only stepped outside to see the stars. 2 days inside a motel, the curtains closed, the air thick with perfume and smoke. I just wanted sky. A family walked past, laughing. For a moment, I felt human again. I said hello. That was all. When I returned, Jay waited behind the door. His fist came fast, no warning. The crack of bone against skin stole the room's oxygen. I hit the floor, the world ringing. He said only one thing. Don't talk to anyone. Ever. Then he left, as if he had brushed dirt from his sleeve. From that night, I lived with silence. Words could bruise as easily as bones. The work blurred. Men came and went. Fathers, husbands, faces that would look ordinary at a grocery store. Some wore wedding bands, some smelled of cologne, some of liquor. They didn't see me. They saw a service. I tried to vanish into wallpaper, into shadows, into whatever would make the minutes pass faster. One evening, celebration outside clashed with horror inside. The city roared with victory. The Red Wings had taken the Stanley Cup. I could hear car horns, shouts of joy, fireworks exploding. Inside, I sat on a bed next to a girl younger than me, barely 13, while 2 men undressed. Their gold bands flashed in the dim light. I stared at the ceiling and thought, even happiness outside sounds cruel when you are trapped. Guilt and shame carved trenches in me. I told myself it wasn't happening, that if I didn't name it, it wouldn't exist. But denial is only a thin blanket in a cold room. It never keeps you warm. Then came the doctor. Jay was angry because I couldn't work. My body betrayed me. Bleeding wouldn't stop. He said, "I'll fix this." He brought me to a room where a man waited. White coat, glasses, eyes that looked like safety. For a moment, I believed. Then the truth hit. He wasn't there to heal me. He was there to trade. I walked out with a prescription for birth control and blood on my skin. The world tilted that day. If even doctors crossed the line, then who was left to trust? After that, I began to split inside. Part of me obeyed, nodded, survived. The other part planned. Tiny rebellions, hiding coins in my shoes, memorizing exits, watching the patterns of who came and went. I told myself, one day I will not be here. But escape wasn't simple. Each time I thought of running, I pictured Jay's eyes, or his son watching us, or Treasure pretending this was normal. Fear froze me. He said once softly, "If you leave, I'll find you. And if I can't find you, I'll find your mother." That was enough. Still, there were cracks. At a motel lobby, a clerk slid me a coffee, eyes searching mine. "You okay?" he asked without words. I nodded. But the kindness pierced me deeper than cruelty ever had. It reminded me I still existed, that maybe, somewhere, someone could see me. At night, in whispers, the girls shared dreams. One wanted to be a nurse. Another just wanted to dance without fear. I whispered mine. A room with books and no locks. They laughed, and for a breath we felt like teenagers again. But the laughter always ended too soon. I carried those whispers like hidden maps, proof that another life could exist. Even in darkness, we planted seeds of hope. And though Jay controlled the rooms, the cars, the rules, he couldn't control the fact that deep down, I still believed in escape. The belief itself became rebellion. There are chains you can feel on your wrists, and there are chains that live inside your mind. Jay used both. The first time I tried to leave, I didn't even call it leaving. I said I needed air, that I wanted to buy a soda. I slipped into the lobby of a Red Roof Inn, heart pounding with each step. A man at the vending machine asked me if I was okay. I forced a smile, lied with my whole face, and walked back upstairs. I thought I'd fooled Jay. I hadn't. He waited behind the door. His hand struck like lightning, hard against the side of my face. My ear rang for hours. He said nothing else, just walked away. That silence was worse than shouting. It told me my life was no longer mine. From then on, I knew escape was not free. It had a price, and he would collect it in blood, or worse. The rooms became my universe. I knew every pattern on the motel carpets, every flicker of broken neon outside. Nights were filled with the shuffle of strangers, men who came in smelling of beer, sweat, or aftershave. Some spoke kindly, as if they were on a date. Some didn't speak at all. Their hands told the story instead. I tried to disappear during those moments, to let my body be a costume while my mind floated elsewhere. Sometimes I imagined I was still a kid, sitting on my mom's couch with cartoons playing. Sometimes I imagined a future version of myself, free and unbroken, walking into a bookstore without fear. But reality always returned when the door slammed shut. Treasure, his baby's mother, stayed close to us. She pretended this was normal, called it family. She'd bring their little boy, let him watch his father rule the room. Seeing a child in the middle of that life twisted me inside. I started to feel protective, even of Jay's own son. It made me stay longer than I should have, my savior complex convincing me that if I left, everyone else would suffer more. The darkest night came with the doctor. My body had betrayed me, bleeding that wouldn't stop. I thought maybe it would save me, make me untouchable. Instead, it made Jay furious. He dragged me to a stranger in a white coat, a man who looked like safety. But safety was a mask. After, he handed me a prescription as if that erased what had happened. That night I learned something brutal. Even men who swore an oath to heal could exploit you. It broke something in me, but it also lit a fire. If no one was coming to save me, then I had to save myself. I began to notice the cracks, the times he grew careless, The way he trusted treasure too much. The few minutes of freedom when I walked to a vending machine or stepped into a lobby. I memorized license plates, street names, the patterns of who came and went. I didn't know when I'd run. I only knew I had to be ready. Still, there were nights when hope drowned. One man, older with gentle eyes, looked just like my uncle. He wore a wedding ring, talked about his children. Then he shut the door and reminded me that even ordinary men carried monsters inside. I cried quietly after he left, wiping my face before Jay could see. The paradox was unbearable. Outside, people cheered hockey games, ate chili fries, lived normal lives. Inside, we were ghosts, unseen, unheard, used. I held on to small rebellions, hiding coins in my shoes, writing my name on scraps of motel notepads and flushing them, as if the universe would catch the letters and deliver them somewhere safe. Whispering dreams with the other girls late at night, dreams of college, of dancing, of living without fear, and through it all, I repeated one sentence in my head, like prayer beads slipping through fingers. This is not forever. This is not forever. Even if I didn't know how or when, I believed it. And belief, I realized, was the first step out. When you're trapped, you start to believe there are only two endings. You disappear forever, or you stay until you forget who you are. But there's another ending, one nobody tells you about. The day you decide you deserve something better. For me, that day came disguised as an ordinary night. Another cheap motel, another group of girls sitting on the bed, pretending we were friends at a sleepover instead of captives. Jay paced the room, bragging about how much money he'd made. His son played with a toy car on the floor, the sound of plastic wheels clicking against stained carpet. That tiny sound echoed louder than his father's voice. I looked at the boy and thought, if I don't leave, this will be his future too. That night, I prayed, not in the way you pray at church, but the way you pray when you're begging the universe to notice you. And somehow it did. The chance came suddenly. Jay left to deal with some business. Treasure was distracted, arguing with another girl. The hotel door was unlocked. My heart thundered so loud I was sure they'd hear it, but my legs carried me outside. The night air was sharp, cold, almost electric. I didn't stop walking until the motel was only a smear of neon behind me. I didn't know where I was going, only that I was going away. Fate placed a stranger in my path, a man older than my father, sitting in a Lincoln. He called me over, and every cell in my body screamed danger. But his voice was steady, and for once my gut didn't tell me to run. He looked at me, really looked, and said, "You don't belong here. Let me take you home." He drove me across the city, no questions, no demands. When I stepped out of his car, he pressed $20 into my hand. "Go home," he said. "Stay home." For the first time in months, I believed someone meant those words. But going home didn't erase the past. Shame clung to me like smoke. When my mom found me, angry, scared, exhausted, I was covered in dirt and someone else's cruelty. She drove me to White Castle, bought me chicken rings like I was still her little girl. Then she dragged me to the police station. I thought maybe this would be the rescue, but even there, safety slipped through my fingers. Cops shook their heads, told my mom to let it go, said it was too dangerous to intervene. One officer slipped me a cigarette out back like pity could replace protection. I realized then, institutions weren't going to save me, so I saved myself. It wasn't quick. It wasn't clean. Trauma doesn't vanish when you walk out a door. For years, I told myself none of it happened, or that it was my fault, or that maybe I had asked for it by dressing the way I did, by running away, by seeking love in the wrong places. But time has a strange way of bending. At 16, I was married. By 17, I was a mother. I traded one kind of prison for another, an abusive partner instead of a pimp. Yet in that mess, I found something I'd never had before, a reason to fight. My kids became my anchor. I stayed alive for them. Decades later, I can finally say this. I am not what was done to me. Yes, I was trafficked. Yes, I was broken down and built back up by men who thought love was ownership. Yes, I carry scars invisible to the eye, but I also built a business with my own hands. I created a life where my children are safe, where they will never go through what I did. I even found a way to reclaim my body on my own terms, turning what once was exploitation into art and choice. The hardest lesson? Monsters don't always hide in shadows. They wear wedding rings. They carry medical degrees. They sit at family dinners. That's the truth nobody wants to face. But there's another truth, too. Survival is possible. Even when the world writes you off, even when your own family doesn't see you, there is a voice inside that whispers, "This is not forever." That voice saved me. And if you're listening to this now, if you've ever felt trapped in chains you can't see, I hope my story becomes that voice for you. You are not what was done to you. You are not broken beyond repair. You can step out of the room, into the night air, and walk toward the life you deserve. I'm still walking, and I'm never looking back.